Hello, hello. It's been a while. About a month actually, give or take. But I'm back and I'm gonna try to release 2 videos this week, starting with this. I got my first 2 commissions in and I thought, hey, it might actually be fun to film it, so here we are. I start off by preparing all my stuff and you'll see the footage speed up in a bit. There you go. For this first round of commissions, I decided to only open up slots for my 4x6 watercolor paintings, and so this first song I'm working on is All I Ask of You from Phantom of the Opera, specifically the cover by Josh Groban and Kelly Clarkson. I started off by adding some white watercolor paint before rehydrating my palette because I wanted a pinkish red and a lightish teal blue to use for this painting. But I also wanted it to be more solid and more opaque, almost like gouache rather than watercolor, and that's what the white paint gets to do. You can see me swatching here because I wanted to use a slight gradient, or not really, and me kind of struggling to start the painting. Compared to ink drawings or even acrylic paintings really, it's harder to just let loose, and to make paintings that I personally think turns out well, I have to be much more intentional with every stroke. So I start off with this, deciding that I want to use a really wide brush to have really clean lines yet smooth and flowy. The teal I started off with leaned more to the light green side, and so as I got to the center of the paper I wanted something with more blue, and so I was able to add that before washing and prepping the brush for the pink. Here you can see me just testing out different strokes and trying to figure out how I want the movement of the pink to be, because I kind of want it to be more free, yet more solid. And while testing, I realized I accidentally flicked paint onto the paper, which thankfully you can't see much, but I was able to get rid of it thanks to the forgiving nature of watercolor, where as long as you don't put too much water onto the paper will live and you'll be able to lift the paint off. And now I do finally get comfortable into laying down the pink. It's almost as if I'm working with ink here in the way that I do the lines and directions of the shapes. I just get into the flow, not thinking about it too much, even though, like I said earlier, I wanted to be more intentional. Sometimes intentional just means being able to set restrictions and flow. An interesting characteristic I've noticed about the paint is that if I load the paint on the brush just right, the first stroke will dry pretty quickly. And so it's either you build upon it right away to get it to be more solid, or you intentionally use that quick drying to add more depth. But while I'm waiting for it to dry properly, I test out a stencil on my test paper, my swab papers, and I'm thinking I want to add some yellow or another color in addition to these two. And the way I want to do it is similar to a pattern I've used in a few previous paintings. It's almost stippling, or I don't know if you'd still call it stippling given that it's paint, but you can see it on the screen right now, albeit it's a bit tiny. It's an interesting way to add sharpness and yet not necessarily a focus point, but I don't know. I guess TLDR, I just like how it looks. Oh, and this brush that I'm using, if you can see, there's a split in it. And I use a lot of cheaper brushes because you end up with unique patterns with it. Just kidding. I use cheaper brushes because they're cheaper, but then they also end up really working well for my abstract stuff, thankfully. What also works really well and is a really big help is having a test paper on hand, because unlike ink or pens, it doesn't come out the same way each time. And this other one I'm testing is if you put a big blob of water that rises above the page and then just like insert pinpricks of pigment onto it, it then distributes and dries and spreads on its own, and it always comes up with interesting natural spreading, but it also depends on the amount of water you use. Meaning that if you put too much water and not enough pigment, it ends up looking flat and washed out, which, if you see the big brush on screen right now and the way too much water, it kind of is what ends up happening. Although I do save it, which you'll see in a bit. Right here though, what you're seeing is me really struggling to put the pigment into the water because I just put too much water. And so I do fix it later on, but right now I'm just doing my best and adding more and more pigment, even though sadly I'm running out of pigment in the color I mixed up. And you can still see that it's wet right now while I'm putting the yellow, but in a moment you will see just how different it looks once it's dry. So this is a while later and it's mostly flat. The distinction isn't as clear as the sample I made initially, although the original sample does look more like Dippin' Dots or like weird bubblegum or cotton candy flavored ice cream or something. But yeah, I mean, strangely enough, I do end up liking the second one way more. It feels more solid, it feels more galaxy space vibes, and you can also see how I made use of my split brush to come up with an effect that almost looks like how when you're using a fountain pen and you press too hard and it just splits. I also added a few crisp lines with my blue and the pink just to add more sharpness. And now it's time for the stencil. The stencil that, unfortunately, the first layer of which you won't see because my phone ran out of space. But there, yeah, that's the first spot, the first layer, and it looks kind of weird. I guess it's just too wet, but the second layer and the third layer adds more character to it. Normally I just use the same brush and it all becomes more consistent circles, but I didn't want to just keep wasting the paint. So I thought it would also be more interesting if I used the 3 different brushes. That way it's not just homogeneous circles and there's more distinction between just the color change. I'm looking for more inspiration here as well, trying to find the next way forward because there's something missing that I couldn't place my hand on, so I took a break and also added my third layer of paint. Oh, look at that close-up. Yep, nice close-up. Time to have a satisfying peel. Closest I'm gonna get to an unboxing on this channel, I guess. Oh, that's satisfying. I swear it's so painful though when you spend so much time on a part and then only to have like the entire paper rip, because that's happened to me, especially on like a bigger piece, and then you're almost done, it just rips and then your heart just drops. But yeah, you gotta work with it. So yeah, this is the ending piece minus one thing. Well, you're seeing peeling now, but there's one thing I add later once it's all peeled up. And sadly, it won't be as seen in camera. It's more of like an in-person thing. And it's something that I thought of after a break because I really didn't know what to do. I decided to get some tea, just take a break away, read my book a bit. And then I decided on adding some of my metallic paint, the silver one, as a top coat on the galaxy looking rectangle in the corner. I tested it in my initial tester before and it looked really good. And so I went straight on to putting it before my heart dropping because I realized I didn't wait for it to dry to see if it looked good. I got lucky though, it did look good. It looks really, really good. Super spacey galaxy vibes, which definitely gives me an idea for a new piece in the future. Sadly though, it's really hard to see on cam, but it looked great in person and I loved it. And that's that for the first piece. The second piece I did was Casual, the acoustic version by Jessie Barrera. I really love the vibe of this song right from the get-go. I imagined deep purples, like really deep, rich purples, some calming deep sea blues, and a really vibrant orange, almost like safety orange, but not quite. But yeah, I go straight for the purple. I go into another flow state for this. I'm kind of wary of overworking the painting and just putting too much, but I really had a vision for it right away and I just went with it. With this brush I'm using, one thing I really like about it is how much paint it holds. Like, you can just keep going forever. But here I'm trying to get rid of the excess paint so that it dries and creates this pattern that almost look like flowers, but not quite. It's something I've been using in my previous paintings. Now, if you're wondering what this other piece of paper is, it's my excess paper. When I have other ideas and because I don't want to waste all the paint that's on the brush, I have this scrap paper that I just put random stuff on, see if things stick. You know, kind of like a mini study. And yeah, now you see me working with the blue, the deep sea blue I was talking about. Kind of just messing with it, having fun. Second guessing this part and where to put it, I decide on this spot. And that spot too. Kind of like an orb pill shape. I really like how the shading goes once it dries a bit. And there's the purple. I wanted another purple stroke to feel more grounded and to make purple as the central color of the piece, I guess. And I admit the use of purple is probably influenced because of the playlist of the song itself. And then I run out of storage. So you missed the part, but just the orange, the laying down of the orange, and some other blue blob pill shapes. And now I'm working with a yellow. So I wanted to use this yellow at the start, but I felt like it wasn't right. But then I thought, hey, I could mix it with my silver metallic paints, and I really loved how it looked. Later on, I'll show you like the finished part where you can see the shine more, and that's probably my favorite part of this whole piece. Well, to be fair, I really like this whole piece. And here I'm just putting a stencil because I knew it was lacking one last thing, and so I had to take a long break, figure it out, and I settled on this. It's going to be a three tricolor. Oh, Cookie, it's my dog. Hello. One more. Hey, there you go. Hello. Wiggle, wiggle. Anyways, yeah. So I settled on a tricolor triangle with a slight gradient to the base, which I know would just tie everything together. The only issue being it's very time consuming, tedious, and if it rips when you pull out the tape, it's just pain. So here is stage 1 of pulling out the tape. And then I mask that up again for the next color, which I think is orange. Yeah? Yeah. Oh, I messed it up. I have to redo it just so it's perfect. There you go. That's cleaner. And there's the orange. Really deep, vibrant. I think I added some red to it to make it pop more. Yeah. Testing if it's dry because I'm impatient. Full disclosure, I edited a lot of parts from this out actually just to get out the dead air and lots of waiting. And I'm actually back onto my bonus painting. I decided to add some orange, use the same color palette as the casual painting, and honestly, I'm liking this square painting a lot. Yeah, it really hits. I don't know. Oh, okay. Satisfying masking time. Hoping it doesn't rip. Hoping it doesn't drip. Hoping it didn't bleed too much. Did it not? It bled a little, yeah. But it kind of looks cool. I like it. I can vibe with it. And removing the other side. So now I have to mask the orange to leave space for the last color. Focus is up. Don't mind the mess on my bed. Please just ignore it. There you go. Okay. I'm adding this last orange bit just so it doesn't look phallic. But yeah, just to save it. Now it's just rinse and repeat. This time with purple, so I'll just super speed it now. Since there was a lot of waiting for this part, I was able to read a bit of Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour, and ooh, I'm really loving this book. I finished it actually in like 2-3 days, and oh, great read. Big super recommend. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about it, the video's coming later this week, my whole Bloomin' Rat update. And we're nearing the end. Now we're at the peeling stage, and it's just me hoping I let it dry enough and that nothing rips and nothing bled. So far so good. Clean. Ooh, close. Lifting the paper. Also clean. Nice. Last one. Come on. You can do it. There you go. That's clean. It just ties everything together. So this is the whole piece. You can see, there you go. Now you can see the metallic shine that I mixed with the yellows. Ah, damn. I really love that one. So that's it. Oh wait, no, yeah. I also had to finish the bonus painting. Since I had excess paint that was still hydrated from this, I decided to use it. Tie everything all together with that splash of yellow, maybe a few accents at the bottom, extension to the top, and that's the finished piece. Really loved it, really loved all the paintings this session actually, and yeah, hope you have a good day. See you in a few days. Bye. Oh. Look at those eyes.